Hello, Joe.
Hey, Dave, what's up, man?
Got 16
Oh, wait, hold
people
on.
coming today.
16? That's pretty good for the first one. Not
Yeah,
bad.
not bad. It's better
Not
than what we
bad.
used to do when I was with the other guy. I got two here.
You
Well,
sound good. You sound good now.
okay, as long as I sound good, that's okay.
I'll
I've
let
got
you know.
5G and I've got it hardline. So we're it automatically switch over for me. So that's the nice thing about IT. You can do stuff like that. Okay, so this is one of the things that's current right now. If you look at the healthcare info security, if you go to this page, you can actually see that there is current breaches. And let's see, here we go. And I'll just pull that on over there. You guys can see that. You see that right on top of it now? That's this is the current breaches that are going on out here. You can keep up to date on them. This is just HIPAA related stuff. I mean, you can click through the tabs and you can find different areas that are breaches and that, but right in the healthcare industry. So we know what's happening out there, and we know we need to protect from it. So what I did is I teamed up with Joseph Marcinino, if I'm saying that right. If not, he can correct me. From Compliance Group, and what he does is he does all the paperwork and all the training and everything like that, and he's going to explain all that for you in a little bit, because I'm gonna give him the floor here, and just as soon as I get through a couple slides here. And that one of the biggest things that just happened recently was President Biden on March 1st came out with this national cybersecurity strategy. They haven't done anything since 2013. Okay. And all these breaches are going on out there. We got Russia hacking us, we got China hacking us, and what they're doing is they're doing crypto locker on the machines, and they're asking for ransoms and that. And you might think, well, I'm a small business. They're not gonna come after me. Well, the big businesses have the money to secure their systems. Maybe they already got everything in place. So if they can't get in there, where are they going to get in? Well, they're going to target you guys. They're going to target anybody that's bringing in money that can pay a ransom. So they ransomware your machine. They ask for, and there's nothing that can break that right now. So if that happens, I mean, all your data is locked, and quite frankly, I hate to use this word, but you're screwed. I mean, there isn't anything you can do unless you have the layers in place first. And part of that is being, HIPAA compliant if you're in the medical field. If you're not in the medical field, well, there's still a compliancy that you should be following for your own business. So you can find this online if you just Google National Cybersecurity Strategy. If not, I'll send you one. I've got a PDF of it. I'd rather see that you came straight from the web, that it's there. So this is a little summary of the HIPAA rules here. And I'm not going to read it all for you, because I'm sure you can all read. But it just basically gives a kind of an outline of what we should be doing, with our compliancy. So with that cybersecurity strategy that came out, kind of alluded to the fact that there's going to be some new laws on the way, because that's the only thing that's going to force people to do this. I went to an FBI meeting, years ago, and they talked about compliancy all the way down to the mom and pop store. They were going to do. I mean, the only way that people are going to do it is if they start basically finding people for not doing it. And then, quite frankly, and once that happens, we're going to be so busy that, we're going to be lined up with work, and it's going to be a waiting list. So they talked about this, and I know that there's something coming up again. They're going to release something again soon this summer. So we can keep our eye out for that, about it, because that may be more about the laws that they're gonna do, because I know they started with the healthcare system. Healthcare has to be compliant. There's rules and regulations already you can find. Well, guess what? That's going to trickle right on down to, if you're a lawyer, or if you're anybody that handles somebody else's data, you're going to get, you're going to have to be compliant. It may not be the same rules as HIPAA, but it's going to have their own compliancy. So how do we avoid these these compliance, fines for HIPAA compliance. We're just going to focus on HIPAA right now. Well, this is why we have Joseph here today, because he's going to help us out here. So there's a little bit of him for his information and his link. And now I'm going to go over here and make him the host, and he's going to talk to you a little bit more about it.
All right. Dave, can you hear me okay? How's my audio doing?
You're doing great. Sounds good.
All right. Hold on a second. I'm going to share my screen now.
I'm going to have to mute myself too, or I'll be jumping in front of your screen here, or I'll stop my video or something. We'll do that for a minute.
Let me know when you can see me.
I can see you just fine on there. I see your screen being shared.
Looks good.
Yep.
All right. All right. Hopefully I sound good. Folks, if you have any questions, please chime in. And Dave, thank you for the setup. You did a great job. And I think half the reason everybody's here, nice education for today, just sort of an overview, what it is you should be doing. There's a lot of confusion in the law and how we sort of go about certain things. But kudos to somebody like Dave, right? Dave really takes security very seriously. It's part of being HIPAA compliant. But at the end of the day, right, as Dave knows, that doesn't make you fully compliant. So he sort of alluded to, hey, Joe's the guy that's going to do your policies, your procedures, your training, the other stuff. And this will be some education around sort of how those two things plug together, what they're actually looking for, and how you can really be safe as a practice or a business. So I'm going to go into that in a little bit. There's only a few slides here, but I promise it'll be good information for you guys. So at the end of this call, whether you use us or not, just you have what you need to move forward and try to do the right thing and let's say keep up with what is your good faith effort on compliance. So I'll start just with a little bit about Compliancy Group. I just want you to know who we are before I start spewing information. You might want to know who Joe is and what Compliancy Group does and where we plug into Dave. So again, Dave is very good, does cybersecurity, works on your networks, all that stuff, very good. And at the end of the day, we're sort of the back end rest of the compliance plan. But who we are, we came out of healthcare. 2005 is when we started Compliancy Group. We were well known in healthcare for doing a lot of, let's say, large entities compliance up until 2013. Most of our clients were like Kaiser Permanente or City of Plano, Texas, or LA County, all 9 of the major hospitals, 1,200 clinics. It wasn't until about 2014, 15, you started to see writing on the wall. 2016, they started to enforce the smaller entities along with the vendors in the space. And the idea was, well, I didn't really have to worry about HIPAA before if I was a small mid-sized practice or a business associate vendor to that medical entity because they weren't enforcing our sector. I mean, quite frankly, that was really it. The HIPAA police are not showing up at our door. Nowadays, we'll sort of give you a story. Dave sort of alluded to it, but there is something you can Google called the Wall of Shame. Health and Human Services under Office of Civil Rights, who's in charge of HIPAA. There is an actual wall of shame. Bad things happen to good people. There's thousands of things that are occurring on that wall. So it is worth a look to show what's going on. So yes, more enforcement is happening. I still don't think they show up at your door tomorrow unannounced, but you have to report any potential breach, issue, concern, question to the government. If there is any hint of a breach, you have to report that. So they could audit you based on that report. They could also randomly audit you, but more importantly now what's happening is you're finding it in your paperwork. So if you look at your own insurance forms, for example, you might not get a payout on your insurance unless you're actually compliant, and that wasn't happening before. So it's no longer just, hey, Joe, I'm not worried about the HIPAA police. Well, you might want to look at your forms. You might not get a payout. There's other things happening, like you'll see if you go to Compliancy Group's blogs, you'll see there's a class action lawsuit that just recently happened. So these are things even outside of HHS's wheelhouse. This is a class action about how a practice was negligent against PHI, has nothing to do with HHS. So that's another way you can get hit. So all that being said, let's put together some checks and balances for you guys so you know exactly what you need to do in order to be safe as a practice or as a business, right? If you fall under that regulation of HIPAA, here's where I'll start. There's a 94% failure rate on that audit. HHS, who's in charge of HIPAA, fail entities at a 94% clip. They get some kind of corrective action, remediation. And that's very telling because that's your ultimate safety. Meaning, if I have a breach, I never get fined for the breach. Believe it or not, I would never be fined because I had a breach of medical information. I would be audited or subject to an audit that then I have to prove that I'm actually compliant and I have everything I need. That's the only way you walk away unscathed. And right now, Health and Human Services doesn't have a certification for HIPAA. You can't be certified HIPAA compliant. So where do I go, right, to make sure that I'm actually validated, verified, that I can pass an audit, so I feel comfortable that what we're doing is sufficient in a world where there's a 94% failure rate? This is where Compliancy Group comes in. So the idea is we are the only endorsed solution for most major medical associations. If you look around the country, a lot of the major medical specialties, if I'm a dentist, an eye doctor, a chiropractor, a orthopedic surgeon, a psychologist, one of the 40 major medical specialties, Compliancy Group is the only thing recommended by that association to their members. Most of the time, sole endorsed solution, the only one. The reason is it's something to illustrate. It's a validation verification process we put you through that you would actually pass an audit. And we're a group of auditors, and knock on wood, we've never had anybody fail. A 100% pass rate in a world where there's a 94% failure rate. So if you actually get into that issue, we actually would defend you. So there's a seal of compliance that you see there. That's what's known in healthcare. It's a validation verification. You could pass an audit, not a certification, but it is something to display in a world where there's no certification. Clickable, actionable seal goes up on the website, email signature, all that stuff. I'm not naive to think you win all this grand new business because you have a seal of compliance on your website. But I think in certain situations, it makes you look really good. It's a story you promote downstream to your patients and your vendors that you are doing the right thing. So in where people can illustrate it, you can. Our whole process, and I'll show you what the law requires, again, whether you use us or not. But at the end of the day, what we do is we have a tool set that manages your compliance. I'll explain how we make it simple and easy. We have a human being that works with you throughout the year. So it's really a web-based tool called the Guard. The Guard is really just everything you need for HIPAA is built into it, almost like QuickBooks, but for HIPAA compliance. We have a human element resource, right? Because with that 94% failure rate, what do most entities do? Here you go, check off this box, you should be good. That's not what we do. We walk you through it, handhold you through it, and then validate that you have everything you need, and we can protect you if there's an issue. So that's when the seal comes behind you. So at the end of the day, the whole deliverable, and I'll just skip forward here on some of the accolades and stuff like that. It's a web-based tool. So again, what I'm going to say is whether you use us or not, start to get into the mindset of how am I managing my compliance, right? That's the best advice I can give you is the government doesn't need you to be 100% compliant, but they need you to comply with the law in a good faith effort. So basically there's certain tangible things I'll show you that they would look for in an audit, whether you, whether you have everything in place, they're going to look for these specific things. So the Guard is really a web-based tool that everybody has access to. The compliance officer works with our coach because most employees are just doing a training. They log in once a year, right? They do that annual HIPAA requirement, which is that training thing that I have to do as an employee. Once a year, I log in and do that. But Joe, the compliance officer for the practice or the business, works with a HIPAA coach. The coach and the software is given. The coach guides you through a series of meetings, usually about 3 to 4 meetings for the year. It's about 8 to 10 hours of total time and effort in order to get our seal. It's clickable, it's actionable, it goes up on the website, press release goes out with it, and then ultimate protection. If you get into an audit, you just let us know. We enact an audit response program. We pull all your data from the Guard and we build it into reports, and then we're able to illustrate that to the auditor. So knock on wood, again, 100% pass rate. If you ever run into an issue, we are there. And what you need to do legally is maintain a good faith effort. So every year we put you through this rinse, wash, repeat process. The law doesn't say you have to do it every year, but you have to do what is effective for you. So trying to figure out on your risk profile what's effective. Obviously, we think, you can imagine, we think 1 year is effective, but you can figure out your risk profile there. I wouldn't let it go 2 years. I don't care what size you are. It should be updated. But let's just say there's a little bit of leeway there. But let's just say in our world, every year there's this rinse, wash, repeat process. We want to bring your compliance officer through the motions of what it is you have to do to be compliant. And this is really what it is, right? So if you walk away with nothing today, this is what you need to walk away with. This would be or if I said, if you walk away with one thing today, this is really it. Again, whether you use us or not, these are the things they're looking for. So again, I have a breach. That breach, and Dave would attest to, somebody like Dave is really securing my network. He has good technology in place, but I still had a breach. Joe, the employee, did something negligent, silly, malicious. That had nothing to do with Dave's technology. His technology was working fine, but I had that breach. I ended up submitting it. I have an audit coming, and they're going to look at this stuff. There's a series of 6 different assessment categories that HIPAA puts forward. And it's very confusing because you will see it on there. Hey, Joe, I don't need to use Compliancy Group. I've already done my HIPAA assessment. My question would be which one? Meaning there are 2 technical assessments that make up a security risk assessment. That's your IT related things. That's where Dave's world is, right? So most of the time you're asked to fill that out because you're doing macro MIPS or meaningful use or attestations to the government. That's not HIPAA compliance. That's an attestation program, an incentive program, but it's also part of the 6 assessments you should be doing. So my argument would have been at the end of the year, before you submitted that to the government, you should have been doing that all along, because that would have been part of your overall HIPAA process anyway. But really where I'm going with it is there's 4 assessments that have nothing to do with IT. Their physical site, administrative protocols, privacy of information, how you handle breaches. So breach notification, technology is part of it. So we'll give you a checklist. There's a checklist of these things I'm going to go through that actually outlines the specific names of these assessments. So just understanding that there's 6 different assessments. If you work with Compliancy Group, the coach walks you through the assessment questions, helps you get the right answer. Everything's stored in the platform. We can pull it out, show the auditor, hey, look, we've actually gone through this. This is what you're going to check, and you can see it. The next thing that they would look for is a gap analysis against those assessments. So it's one thing that I've actually assessed myself, and a lot of entities don't even know the names of the assessments. So if you don't know the names, it's hard to have a gap analysis, right, correlating with that assessment. So they want to see the gap analysis to your assessment. So we create that for you. We create all the remediation efforts on how to address each gap. Where Dave's team comes in is we are not your boots on the ground, fix your tech. We're the validators of the work, right? HIPAA is going to ask for certain safeguards around email protection or disaster recovery or access controls or endpoint protection, new word for antivirus, right? Whatever it is, certain basic safeguarding has to be in place. So what we do is we work with somebody like Dave, or we work with your internal IT, and we validate that work. We ensure that that would pass an audit. So there's certain ways you can set up technology. We want to make sure your IT person's doing it correctly. If not, we recommend use somebody like Dave who gets it and can work in this arena. Let's just say we validate the tech so we can help it pass an audit. But most of your gaps that come back from these assessments are not technical gaps. Just the 2 assessments were technical. Most of the gaps are going to be around this stuff: policies, procedures, training, right? Think about your own booklet. Is it sitting in the top shelf? When was the last time it was reviewed? Joe says I should be doing it once a year, but okay, I gave it some leeway, once every 19, 18 months. Have you done that, right? So the idea is the government wants to see a cycle. They want to see that you've audited yourself correctly. You've identified certain changes you need to take action on. Then you've updated the tech and you've updated your documents. So there's over 42 policies and procedures. That law could have changed from last year. You could have added a location. You could add new employees. You could change the way you operate. Those policies and procedures would not reflect you as a business anymore, even though they might have been accurate a couple of years ago, and the auditor would fail you. So the idea is you have to rinse, wash, repeat, pull them out, update them accordance with the law. Compliance Group would just do that for you. We have all your documents. We put that in place. We understand when you're missing and give you the stuff you need. The employees are subject to a training. So that's part of HIPAA compliance is, hey, I need to do a HIPAA training for my staff. It's the most common thing we hear. Hey, Joe, I don't need Compliance Group. We do a training on the staff and they get a certificate, right? The certificate is not recognized by the government. We said that, right? No certification. And most of the time when you look at the training programs, what do? They watch a few videos on HIPAA and they get the certificate. HIPAA 101 training is very good. Nothing wrong with it. But at the end of the day, the government auditor wants to see that your employees know how to do their job more so than did they watch a video on HIPAA. They want the legal attestation of the updated policies and procedures that each employee knows what they're doing. So we have the employees do both. They're going to watch some HIPAA 101 videos, right? Common sense stuff. And then they're going to attest legally that they read and understood your updated policies and procedures. So you see how this all correlates. If I don't do my audits, I can't identify my gaps. I don't identify my gaps, I don't update my documents. I don't update my documents, my employees are training on the old handbook, and that could be failing my audit. So having this stuff sort of correlating and in sync, and that's exactly why we have a deliverable, and we're not just a consulting company, because you need a way to manage it, right? HIP is an ongoing race you don't finish, if that makes sense. You have to continue in the race and make a good faith effort. So they want to see this sort of process you have, and you can illustrate it very effectively. So remember, the one key piece of training, happy to talk more on it, but legal attestation that your employee read and understood your internal policies and procedures, not just I watched a video in HIPAA, but you know what? I did cause a breach. I didn't know what our policy was. They never trained me on that. Right? They just trained me on this video thing. That's what you need. Vendor agreements are important. So we talk about business associate agreements. That's what puts the vendors over the fence. So it's companies, it could be somebody like Dave. It could be somebody like a hosting company, billing company, shredding company, electronic health record. And you guys probably have some in place, right? You're probably thinking, Joe, I know BAA agreements, legal HIPAA contracts. We have them with certain vendors. You probably don't have them with other vendors, right? Who knows that a law firm or an accountant potentially that sees PHI, they need a BAA agreement as well. And if I'm the medical entity, I could receive the fine for not having one. That vendor could be audited for negligence. I would get the fine. So I'm the legal responsible party as a covered entity, medical entity. So what we do is the coach at Compliancy Group who's walking you through these meetings, they review the vendors with you to make sure you have proper BAA agreements. You don't have to use ours, but you can. And we store them in the system, and we're able to build reports out of them. And then ongoing for HIPAA, what's required is incident management. You have to have some place your employees can go to report breaches, incidences, concerns to their compliance officer internally. This will not go to the government, but they need a place to report something. So Joe, the employee, lost his smartphone. I don't know if that's a violation or not. I have no idea. But I was taught to say something if I did have a breach or a potential breach. So I'm going to log into this guard thing. That's me as an employee. I came in to do training once a year, but I'm going to log back in now because there's an incident manager there that I'm going to document the issue. I'm going to submit it to my compliance officer, who's then going to investigate that. But how? How? Did I call somebody like Dave? Dave's in IT. Dave's not your legal law firm HIPAA experts, right? He can help you do forensics on IT and get down to the bottom of the breach, but not legal counsel. Compliancy Group is not legal counsel either. But what we would do is help you throughout the year. We have a group of auditors. We have a legal team behind it. It's just a play on words, but you can look at it as consulting, but it's not quite. But the idea is you have a breach, you have an issue, you call your coach. The coach will document it with you, give you good advice, help you put evidence together, help you submit it to the government. And God forbid you do submit it and there's an audit based on that submission, we enact the audit response program. But a clear definition of the law is having a specific incident management tracking system that your employees can go report issues or breaches internally to their compliance officer. Then you have to document it, put the evidence together. So some way, shape, or form have that handy for your employees. And they have come to a place where they said your employees need an anonymous way. They might not always choose the anonymous way, but they need an anonymous way to report their potential breach. In case it's sensitive or something with PHI, they don't want known that it was them. But if they submit it internally to their compliance officer, that means their compliance officer has to investigate that. So just take note that if you get an incident, you have to investigate it. You can't just let it sit. If the government finds out you had a breach and you didn't report it, you could be fined right off the bat for not reporting it. And then they would do a HIPAA audit and fine you again for not being compliant. If you've had a breach, it might make sense to put together a plan like this, just so you have something in place, right? Score brownie points. Even Compliancy Group probably couldn't guarantee 100% you get off a fine if something happened before, but they're going to look at that very closely and say, well, you took action, right? Instead of just sitting there waiting for the audit to happen. It could be 2 years later that breach occurred. So I'll stop here. I really just wanted to sort of fine tune, and this slide makes sense. I think actually I'll show one more. This is where security and compliance meet, right? So we talk about, well, Dave and Joe, what's the difference? Dave can help you do the technical assessments. Dave can put in technical remediation. That is a front and center of HIPAA compliance. We don't want to be breached in the first place, right? But the end of the day, that's a period. That's a portion of the assessments or audits you have to go through. Only 2 out of the 6, and then the remediation, the IT remediation, is only a portion of. You got to do your documentation and everything else that surrounds it. And even the documentation, it's confusing because it does do security. There's security policies, procedures, and training, but there's also privacy, administrative, and other safeguards like physical. So the idea being, a lot of IT vendors outside of somebody like Dave, and that's why it's kudos to you, Dave, for bringing us on today. A lot of IT vendors would tell their clients, hey, I did that security risk assessment. I gave you good IT in your environment, and maybe I even did some security policies and procedures with you. You're compliant. And I'm going to turn around and say, no, they're not. They're potentially secure at best. But who validated the security work for you, Mr. and Mrs. IT provider, if there is no certification for HIPAA, right? So where did they get their validation? And then the rest of the red boxes is what you need in order to, let's say, prove your compliance in an audit. So again, security, compliance, you're really not fully safe unless 2 of those things are acting together as one, and you have this effective plan, synergy, race you don't finish, if that makes sense, correlating good faith effort. That's what they're looking for, good faith effort. So I know we're running up against time, Dave. I'm going to stop here. I know there's a nice checklist we can give on this stuff, but I want to turn it back to you for a second here. I'm going to stop my part. Maybe some folks have questions, and then I am going to make you unmute. I think I got to do that. So, okay.
There we are.
There you go.
Okay. So yeah, one of the things I caught through there, and that someone does lose a phone, they probably should call both of us, because I can actually remotely wipe that phone.
Yeah, talk about that, Dave. Talk about some of the stuff that you do.
Because if we're going with HIPAA compliance, I would have that software in place already. We're gonna make sure it's remotely locked so someone can't get into it. Maybe you left it at McDonald's or something. You come back, you ask McDonald's, it's not here. Somebody must took it. I mean, I lost a pair of glasses that way. I mean, not that there would be any HIPAA compliance with that, but geez, if you leave an iPhone, someone's gonna pick it up and take it. They get stolen all the time. So what I can do is get on the my dashboard, lock that device, remotely wipe it. So at least we got our first step done, and then we go through and we see what we can do about it and investigate it, and then make sure that nothing ever happens with that, and keep an eye on that device, because if something comes through with it, maybe it was another IT guy that picked it up and he plugs it into his computer and starts going through it and finding things. So that's one of the things that you want to think about. And that can be an iPad, that can be anything. Your car could get broken into, when you're somewhere and you had your laptop in here from work. I mean, I do a couple doctors and offices around here where they work remotely. They do take devices on the road, and we do have to make sure they're secure when they go on the road, and that there's a way to manage them, and they do exactly what I said, remote wipe them if something were to happen out there. Being that there isn't a lot of us on here, what I'm going to do is go through and unmute everyone so that maybe you can ask your questions that way, if we could just take one at a time. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, I might have to just go through each one and do it. Let's see. I think my chat's in the way to unmute everyone here. That's why we're not seeing that. Close that chat. But if you want to, just in the meantime, just put it inside the chat box down there. And then I just bought the version of Zoom here, so everything's kind of different to work with because it upgraded than it was when I was using the free version in here. So I see we have some people that are nurses, and we have some people. Ivan, I believe, is in an IT guy to himself and looking into compliance and doing that too. Let's see here. Do I still have you unmuted over there?
Yeah, I'm good.
Joseph? Yeah,
I'm good.
yeah. I don't see an unmute for everyone button in here. I mean, every time this thing updates, it changes.
Yeah.
Let's see. But yeah, so let me show you the rest of my presentation here. I mean, we got a little bit here. Am I sharing my screen now? You see that?
Not yet.
No?
No.
Okay. Well, you let that. I wonder if you passed that completely back over to me. You just
Oh
might
yeah,
have
let me
just-
do that.
I think you just unmuted me. I don't think you gave me full control because I don't see my full dashboard here. That's what I think the problem is. Yeah, you needed to make me whole.
There you go. Yep. my
Okay,
fault.
that made a difference.
And
That's
the
why I couldn't
compliance
do it.
guy. I get
Okay.
it.
I gave complete control to him. I trusted him because he's a HIPAA guy. Okay.
Ian knew.
No.
Ian knew. He wrote it. He
Yeah.
saw it.
Okay. So I think I got
Thank you, Ian.
yeah, I can ask unmute people now. Yeah, there we go. And there, we'll just unmute everybody. And there were like, quite a few people invited. Anybody that missed it, I'm gonna send out a copy of the meeting. We are recording it, and I will, upload it to some of the social media sites and different things like that, like YouTube and some of the podcasting and things like that. Anybody, I don't think anybody wants to unmute. I've sent it to them to ask them to unmute. Anybody got any questions here that they want to ask us as we go along here? There's one in the chat, so let's see the chat then again here. Yes, unmute mode. Yeah, I try to send that to Ivan here. Yeah, send it to him. Or if it's just not working, that'd be great. Thank you, Zoom. Can you get that, Ivan? Is it I'm asking you to unmute. I think you gotta accept it.
Yes, I got it. Thank you,
Okay,
Dave.
there he is. Hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you. So what's your question, Ivan? Oh, I don't know. He just didn't stay unmuted. I should have an unmute all button here. All right. Okay. So I think he muted himself again, and then yeah, mute again. Sorry, typo. Okay. Keep sending.
Yeah.
There
Can
you
you hear
are.
me now?
Okay. Yeah, don't mute yourself, otherwise it won't let you unmute again until I find the button here to unmute everybody. You think they'd have that right down on the bottom, unmute everybody, but they don't.
Yeah, they do. Sorry, fat fingers. Yeah, I have a question. Dave, you mentioned about remotely cleaning the phone. Is it like city limits or is it nationwide, anywhere in the US?
Well, I'm just doing US right now for anybody here, but yeah, I mean, it depends on what software you use. It's going to run in the background, stuff like that. I mean, usually it can be an app on a phone or something like that. I know I use Meraki, and Meraki has a device management system where you can manage everything. You push out the apps to the device, things like that. And if we're using a Meraki security device at their center, which is what I usually like to use because it's HIPAA compliant. And then I can get in there on the dashboard and I can remotely wipe it, encrypt it, whatever I need to do. I mean, most times they're encrypted anyway, but I mean, if that doesn't help if somebody's got the actual phone in their hands. I mean, that becomes a whole nother problem than somebody just trying to remote into the phone or hack the phone in a sense,
Mhm.
and that.
So okay, so what happened recently was one of my guys, he dropped his phone at a golf course in Austin, Texas.
Okay.
And are you based around Texas, or are you based somewhere else?
I'm in Michigan, but yeah, it's great to hear from somebody from Texas and that too. I mean, Joseph works anywhere in the world. I mean, I can work remotely, but I obviously can't work on site.
Okay. So if, let's say, if we drop a phone in Texas and we call you, you can do it from Michigan, like remote access, everything, like
Oh,
just
yeah.
remove all the content. Okay.
Oh,
Got
yeah,
it.
you can do that anywhere as long as it's connected to the internet. I'd imagine they can do it overseas. I mean, if they had to, go to London or something like that, as long as they got a service and maybe they even just Wi-Fi at the hotel or something, they can get it. But the device does have to be connected
Mhm.
to the internet. See, now that's where it becomes a problem if you get somebody that I mean, maybe it was unlocked and the first thing they did was, turn on airplane mode or something like that.
Okay.
Then you've got a bad actor. It's a little bit smarter than the average guy, because if he turns that off, there's not really a way to push to turn that on. I mean, you can lock out those type of things so that they can't do that, and that's what I would recommend when you set up the devices, because you
Okay.
got the thing online all the time so that you can manage it.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. Don't worry. We keep everything stateside, so nothing overseas. Yeah,
Okay.
because we have this zero trust policy in place, so it's not easy
Zero
for us to
trust
get
and
out
stuff
of
like that.
US.
And I know Joseph mentioned, like compliancy too, like who's gonna make sure that I'm compliant. Well, actually, I'm working with a couple groups now that I'm partnered with also that are gonna make sure that I'm compliant, and third party that's gonna make sure that my network is compliant also, because that would be terrible if me as an IT guy, if I was working on someone's network and I was the cause of the infection. And that's what you got to ask maybe your current IT guys out there and stuff like that, because a lot of them, they're not compliant either. I mean, they're not making sure their networks are secure. They're putting all this security on their clients, but then they have no security from where they're working from.
Mhm.
I mean, are you using a VPN for one? I mean, that's one thing that every IT guy should have, at least for right now. I mean, there's better things coming out yet that I just went to a recent security conference, FutureCon, like 2 weeks ago or so, and VPNs are actually going to be something of the past, because there's going to be more secure things than that to use. Security devices on your network. I mean, I can't even use Microsoft Teams right now because I'm trying to be compliant, and their certificate isn't it isn't accepting their certificate.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I got other people say, "Oh, you just use Teams." I said, "No, I can't use Teams right now. It's a breach. It's a problem that Microsoft needs to fix first." You know,
Yeah.
so until they
Mhm.
fix that, I can't use that.
Yeah. Yeah, lately most of the topic has been centered around ChatGPT and AI stuff. So yeah, I
Oh
understand
yeah,
what you're saying. Yeah.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's going to speed things along real fast, because that's working in every industry. The Bing has already announced that they released their version of Chat GBT or whatever, built right into their browser to help you
Mhm.
search better. So, it's kind of scary because Chrome tried it for a little bit, and Google, and they shut their system down. That's because it was scaring them.
Mhm.
In they've got it in fighter pilots right now. Flying jets, unmanned.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not talking drones, we're talking an AI, which is almost a new entity. It thinks for itself. That's what the difference is. It makes decisions based on calculations. So that's what we're going to see in here too. Is I mean, my bot on my website is AI. It talks to you like it's a person. Matter of fact, I get people having conversations with it sometimes, and they think it's me in there because it answers them back. But I can see that coming in healthcare too. I mean, it's gonna work right into healthcare. It's gonna be in everything. And that's going to be difficult for us to cover, as cybersecurity. And I don't know what Joseph thinks of that, but on his part, I mean, because he's gonna work on doing the compliancy part with working with the people, doing all the paperwork and making sure everything's compliant that way. I just
Yeah,
want
that's my question for Joseph. So Joseph, you're talking about HIPAA compliance, right? What we
Mhm.
think about the impact of AI in the next couple of months or next couple of years
It's a
for HIPAA compliance? Thank
It's
you,
a
sir.
good question. And Compliancy Group actually has, I don't know if it's a chat GPT specific and HIPAA compliance, but there's something we just recently did. I'm gonna see if I can post an article in the chat. I'm looking for it now. We recently did that, but obviously it's gonna change the game. And I think they're also changing the way the law is written nowadays. And I did find it. I'm gonna, at least it's chat GPT. It'll go through some of this stuff. I'm gonna post it in here in case you guys want to look at that. That's gonna center around some of this stuff. Let me see if it actually goes into more AI stuff, or is it chat GPT specific? AI docs. Yeah, no, I mean there's some good stuff in here. I'm looking at it now. I would read that one. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you, Joseph.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, does anybody else, I'm gonna let everybody unmute themselves. Jasmine, would you like to say anything? Or I'm not sure if I'm saying that name right. Letting everybody else, if they want to unmute themselves.
Yes, you're saying my name right.
So you're a
I'm
nurse.
fairly new in the oldest, so I'm still learning. And it's nice to hear.
Yeah, I'll learn to the day I die is what I tell people.
That's true.
But what are you seeing in as a nurse out there, in HIPAA compliance?
There, as a nurse, I mean, I just started, so I'm fairly new.
Okay.
However, there are many things. I just received a letter from my doctor's office that there was a breach in my information. So as I read the letter, I was wondering, okay, what else is done in order to protect? And it said that the social security numbers were breached, as well as a lot of other personal information, which I didn't like at all. So I was kind of going to go through things to figure out what else and what else was done for it, because the letter didn't explain anything.
Yeah, Joseph, what procedure should they have taken the doctor after the breach? I mean, obviously they reported the breach, or at least they're reporting it to their clients.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we probably would say seek legal counsel there, but here's what I would say is obviously legal counsel is probably the first order of advice, but I would say whether they audit you or not, I would put, like I was saying before, having that good faith effort to realize that you've had a breach and you went and put a corrective action in place, right? So that you score brownie points by saying, look, we know this happened. We could have been doing better. We went out of our way. We entered into Compliancy Group's program. We started putting whatever it is together. It's going to score some brownie points instead of, let's say, just waiting and then potentially don't doing anything. And then they audit you and then you just didn't take action. So that, I mean, it's sort of a double-edged sword where you could be reporting it and it triggers an audit on yourself, but you really don't have a safety measure besides trying to clean up the good faith effort, if that makes sense.
yeah. Now I have an example of my own dentist I went to not too long ago. I'm sitting there in the chair and I'm looking on the wall, and they got a clipboard with all the clients that are coming in that day, their names,
Yeah.
their phone numbers, their times. So me being, the studious IT guy, I went over and I took a picture of it. And then I said something to the lady who was cleaning my teeth, And she goes, oh, that's, just, I said, that's a compliancy issue. They're hanging that up. Oh, that's just so we can keep track of our clients. I said, but that's a HIPAA compliant. I says, you shouldn't have that hanging there. My info's on there. And she goes, well, nobody can do anything with that. And I says, oh yeah. I says, you don't think anybody can do anything with that? And I showed her, I took the picture and I says, now I got their names or numbers. I got all this. I can say, I can call up and say, hey, I'm new over at such and such dental office. Just trying to update your records. I see you were here on this date at this time. I need your social security number and maybe even your driver's license number, because people are real easy at giving information once they hear that, well, they must be the right person because they knew what time I was at the dentist and they know what dentist. So, I mean, they gotta be that. I'll just, just say I was new. I'm new. I'm working behind the desk. I'm kind of part-time. I know you probably didn't see me that day because I wasn't there, but and social engineering is the first step, is how they get the information. I mean, they're going to call you up, or maybe they look you up from that information. Because God, man, if they got your phone number and your name, you would not believe the information that you can get free, completely free, just digging from there. I can find out your neighbors, who your wife is, who your relatives are, places that you lived. Maybe I can look at your all your public profiles and get information from there and just keep digging. In about 10-15 minutes, I pretty much still got half your life figured out. So I mean, that's scary, and here I am, I call myself a white hat because I'm one of the good guys. I mean, I could take that info and I could use it for bad, but I'm trying to correct these actions. I'm trying to tell people this isn't what you should be doing. So I asked them at the front desk, I said, who's your current IT guy? And then I says, I'd like to know, because, is he telling you anything about HIPAA compliance? Has he got your networks? Oh, yeah, we're taking care of, we use ... software on our computer and they're HIPAA compliant. So we're HIPAA compliant. Joseph, are they HIPAA compliant because they're using someone else's software?
No, that's a very common thing too. There's two things on what you guys just were talking about. The first thing is my vendor's compliant. That makes me compliant, which is completely false. You need your own compliance plan. They could help you with some of the security posture because you're using a product that is compliant on security, but remember the rest of the audits and trainings and BAAs and all that stuff, that you're still responsible for that. You got to do that. And then the other thing is the list you were talking about too, Dave. The whistleblower can come in. So now more concerning is I'm a disgruntled patient and I report you because I saw someone's names. I get a portion of your settlement now. The average HIPAA fine is 1.5 million. We get a portion of the settlement if I reported you into HHS.
No, I did not know that. There's
Yep.
people that could just go out there and
Yep.
use it as a job. That's a full-time job.
Yeah.
Just going around to places like that, and
Not too hard with a 94% failure rate too.
yeah. So they pretty much don't know that they're gonna, they walk into a place that's completely compliant and doing what they're supposed to do, they'd be shocked,
Yep.
because most people just, it's not that they're doing it on purpose, okay? They're not, it's just that it's convenient, okay? The security is not convenience. Think about it. I mean, we all lock our doors to our house. Maybe we have an alarm system we set. Maybe we even have a dog or a tape, of a dog barking when we leave. I've actually seen people that have these little robotic dogs they stick by the door and stuff like that. And if there's any kind of movement, they picks it up. We got security lights, we put up all this stuff for security, for our own personal security. And then when we go to work, are they going to let us down? Are they going to neglect us? I mean, we're trying to protect ourselves as much as they can. They've got all our information. I mean, think about when you fill out the application to work there, all the information they've got.
Yeah.
They put that in digital form. It's on the computer. It's maybe even in a physical box there that's out. I mean, I've been to actually places where I remember I applied and they took out the whole folder and they're going through it looking for mine and they're setting everyone else's on there right out in the open. Maybe I got a photographic memory and I'm sitting there, boom, I've got all this info, as they're doing it. They should never do something like that. I mean, there's just little things they should do in preparation for it, I mean, it's just knowing how to do it in the right policies and procedures to do it. And it's just like the lock on the door. I don't like locking my doors. I mean, it's inconvenient, especially I have to lock my garage door, okay? It's not part of the house, go in and out. But I lock it because I leave and stuff like that, and there's tools and there's things in there I don't want people to get at. Delivery guys have known the, UPS guy looks around, doesn't see anything, I'll just go in there and I'll just take a couple things. They
Yeah.
probably never even noticed, they'll just think he misplaced it. And that does happen to places.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't like to give this information out, but my place here, my home was robbed, okay, several years ago. I have security cameras and it was robbed. I did not have my payment up on my alarm system because I didn't think it was that important. They raised it on me. Figure I live around the country. I've been out here 25 years, never had any problems. I got locks on the doors, everything like that. The guy came up with a clipboard during voting time. On the back of the clipboard, he had his little list of things that he was looking for. Only stole certain things in the house. It was difficult to tell. The house wasn't ransacked. If I did not have cameras, the police wouldn't even have believed me that I was robbed. Okay, so I had that in place. Now that really woke me up on my own physical security at the house here, because I should have had that paid. I mean, it was it's another bill. I don't like having to pay for another bill. Sometimes just the thought or it being there. It's right where the door is, where if you look in, you can see it, so you think that someone would just, pass by, because you can't tell if it's armed or not, but he came in through a window. They were professionals. 19 houses got robbed along my area. I posted on social media as fast as I could about it. I saved 2 of my neighbors from getting robbed, because the next day they tried to rob 2 other of my neighbors around the block. So when we think about that and talking about it and doing something about it is basically what we need to do. We need to talk about it with our bosses. We need to talk about it with other people that are in the same trades and things like that, because we need people to know that security, yes, an inconvenience, but it can happen to you. It can happen to anyone. And the way the breaching's going out here in the data, it's gonna happen. It's not a question of if, it's when. So let's be secure now and start putting the layers in place, because before we have to scramble to do it, because that's what I had to do with the house, is I had to scramble and get things in order. I mean, they tried to get in my garage, and thank God they didn't get in there, because I had a lot of hunting equipment in there. That would have been devastating to me, and tools. I mean, luckily I got like regular bars that go across the door I do. So when you drive out of the car, you can't kick the door down. But they did try to kick the doors down on my garage even.
Yeah. Good story. I mean, yeah, I mean, you need to start somewhere, and you have to have a track record of it. And if you're not doing it now, it's no time like the present to start.
Yeah. So, spreading the word on it and asking questions and signing up for, information about the breaches and different things like that. So I know Joseph says he's got to be heading out soon. So, Joseph, did you post your information in the chat so that people know how to get a hold of you if they need to?
Yeah. Let me do that now.
And I'll send that out with a copy of this webinar too, his information. But if you wanted to get a hold of him earlier and talk to him a little bit more about it, you can email him, call him. It's also got his website listed there.
Link to the calendar I'll put in too.
Yeah. You can set up an appointment directly with him to talk more. But yeah, we're coming to the end here. We got 12 o'clock. If anybody had any questions afterward, they're more than welcome to, stay on if they like, unmute you. But I know Joseph's got to head out to another meeting. So we do appreciate him coming and being a special guest and co-host today. And it's Joseph Mancinino from Complaince Group. We thank you very much, and we're looking forward to talking to you more. So we're gonna unmute anybody that wants to stay. So anybody wants to stay, go ahead and, I'll let you unmute. Anybody else have any questions for any of us? Everybody, if everybody's good, then we're gonna go ahead and end the meeting, and I'll send you a copy out. And you guys have a great day, and hopefully we'll be able to get this out to everybody today, the copy of it, and you can forward it to your friends and bosses or whoever you'd like. Everybody have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.